What's up? Welcome back to another video. Hey, I'm LizzAnn. If you're new, welcome to my channel. I am happy to have you. I created this YouTube series on my channel for the months of September and October, where I post nothing but fall, spooky, and Halloween related content, and we called it a Lizzoween. This is episode 9 of Lizzoween, and that is the second last episode. For this episode, I am dressed witchy, and that is because we are going to be reading some spooky stories. I borrowed this Canadian Hauntings, a Haunted Canada book. I borrowed it from one of my good friends. You guys met her on this channel before, and she lent me this book to read some spooky stories. I picked out 7 of them for you guys, so let's get into the spooky storytelling, shall we? Have some tea. It is called The Spookiest Place I Know, and it's Devil's Island, Nova Scotia. With those words, Jack Conrad, a longtime caretaker on Devil's Island, a 25-acre chunk of sand and bushes near the harbor entrance to Halifax, Nova Scotia, described the place he knew well, although it's only a kilometer from Eastern Passage. Conrad said, "It might as well be in the middle of the Atlantic. You can get stranded, but it's not getting stranded that's worried people. It's wondering if all the hair-raising tales about the island are even remotely true." Although it was settled in the early 18th century, the small windswept island gained its reputation only in the past century. The reasons are probably twofold. When the sun rose and set, it shone through the lighthouse windows so that it seemed the building was on fire. And many people have died in the rough waters of the reef-rimmed island. Families only occasionally lived there, making living from fishing, but most of them left decades ago. In 1977, a man from Whitehorse, Yukon, took up an offer by the island's owner, Bill Mott, to live there rent-free. He said to have lasted 1 week before taking off for parts unknown. Clarence Henneberry spent the first 60 years of his life on Devil's Island until he and other residents were forced to leave in 1945 because of wartime military restrictions. Government officials thought they could see too much of the naval activity in and around Halifax Harbor. Henneberry did not believe in ghosts, but he had enough strange experiences on the island not to fool around with the supernatural. Across the island from where he grew up, there was a house that was thought to harbor evil spirits. There was something wrong with the house, Henneberry said. "I've seen the roof of that house ablaze half a dozen times. Once I went up to it and put my hand on it, and it was as cold as the kitchen table. Then there was the walking light, the unheld lantern. Used to go from the house to the bush, then walk back. I wanted to see it, but my father wouldn't let me. I wasn't scared," Henneberry insisted. In Nova Scotia, as in many other regions of the world, there has been a belief in forerunners, sometimes called tokens. These are the appearance by dead relatives or omens of a tragedy to come. Clarence Henneberry witnessed a forerunner. His brother Charlie appeared to him late one night. "I woke, and he was in my room with wet clothes on. I asked him what he was doing at home, and he didn't answer me. He was there only a minute." Henneberry didn't think any more about the incident. And I have 2 more stories left. The second last one is called Children of the Night, and it's from Montreal, Quebec. Sometimes it is better not to question providence, yet the intervention of coincidence or change or God or whatever one chooses to call it, not always headed by prudent men and women. Such was the case in 19th century Montreal at a municipal factory that housed children built in 1805 in the design of secure but homey structure. The place was soon struck with tragedy. 2 children killed the director and his wife and set the house ablaze to cover up the crime. They were soon appeared and put on the trial for murder. They were quickly found guilty of the slayings and hanged. That should have been the end of this particular burial toll, but it wasn't. The house was rebuilt on its original foundation and passed from owner to owner for the next 100 years. If it is possible for a local to be haunted by present events, this is the one. This is one of those cases. Murder, suicide, and more unexplained fires plagued the numerous habitats of this cursed house. Zones of fragile air suddenly sprung up in the warmth of its rooms. In 1905, another Paul Furter and his pretty young wife, Denise, and their lovely 5-year-old daughter, Giselle, bought the home and moved in. They knew little of its history. They should have been more careful. Furter's inaugural novel, Fields of Aeronath, had just been published to generally positive reviews. He had nearly completed a second book and was looking forward to spending his writing career in this old house. Denise Furter was the first to discover the true legacy of the home. Its role in a heinous crime early in the last century was well known in the neighborhood, and perhaps to the real estate agents as well, but everyone failed to warn the Furters. Perhaps this was an accident, perhaps it was something more. At any rate, when Denise spoke to the neighbors about their home, the story of his past settled heavily on her conscience. She grew more apprehensive with each passing week. Then her little daughter Giselle became affected. The child barely slept through the night. Their bedroom seemed affected, with gnarling cold spots. Perhaps, too, she sensed her mother's increasingly anxious moods. The poor tot could do little but worry that ma mère was upset about something. Ma mère means mother. Denise's visit with her parish priest did little to absolve her of the gnawing fear. He thought the strain of keeping up the large house was too much for her. When she asked him to exorcise her home, he sent her away with more than a little skepticism in his dismissed tone. Denise came home from the church with the almost payable understanding that on this night there would come something truly horrible. Paul seemed especially churlish at dinner. He consumed nearly a full bottle of wine and spoke little to either his wife or his daughter. His behavior had changed since moving into the house, and he snapped at Denise. Whenever she tried to broach the subject of his erratic torment, he just laughed. When he tried to point out these rooms in the house that seemed unnaturally cold, or those in which there seemed to be several pairs of eyes watching you. Every move, she hardly dared mention those other times when she heard childish laughter that sent chills as cold as ice itself through her entire body. The evening was a disaster. Denise knew better than to let Giselle linger too long in such an atmosphere. She carried her child up to bed, whispering all the while that the bright morning sun would cheer them all. Giselle shook her head. She held her mother tight, beginning to take her away from the house that night. A cold spot had begun in her bed. Last night, she cried. She was afraid it would come back. Denise tucked the child in and kissed her goodnight. Giselle held onto her mother with all her might. She could muster in her tiny arms. It was all as if to let her mother go would mean the end of her small family. The events of the next 4 hours were eventually pieced together from Giselle's tortured memories and the testimony of a few witnesses. Some hours after she fell asleep, Giselle woke to the smell of smoke. There were no flames visible, nor any sense of extreme heat. She ran down the hallway. Smoke was coming from beneath her parents' bedroom. She pushed the door open. The bedroom was inferno, but there was more of a horrible sight. Her father's lifeless body sprawled on the floor, a pair of scissors buried in his throat. Only the bloodied hands were visible. Giselle's eyes shifted to the bed, where her frenzied mother was frightening off 2 small naked boys who who were shaking with soundless laughter as they drove their fists in Denise's bruised and bloody face. Giselle ran next door for help. When the neighbors arrived, the scene was not at all as if she had breathlessly related to them. Yes, Paul Forger's remains were on the floor, and Denise was barely conscious on the bed. But there was no fire, no friends' eyes, naked boys, no smell of smoke, only the indescribable signs of a murderous cordial in between husband and wife. Denise had apparently fought off her husband's attack by stabbing him in his self-defense with the scissors. That was the verdict of the police anyway. They dismissed Giselle's account as the sad result of having seen her mother kill her father. Denise lived for several months before succumbing to her critical injuries. She never regained consciousness. Giselle Forger moved away to the United States to live with her grandparents. The Forgers were the last family to live in the damned house. It burned to the ground for the last time in 1906. And then the last one is called Deathbed. While remodeling a house, remove an uncomfortable feeling that may pressure on haunting. Can a single spectacular appreciation exhaust a ghost's energy? These are the investing questions posed by a turn-off-the-century story from Vancouver's West End. Middle-aged couple built their new home there, but lived in it for only 6 months before the wife died. Her husband sold the place and moved from the city. From the very beginning, the new owners were deciding uncomfortably on the home's main floor, especially in the master bedroom. They decided that remodeling might have activated their anxiety. A small drawing room adjustment to the former master bedroom was enlarged to include the old bedroom. Walls were moved, new rugs and furniture were purchased for every room, and the walls were repurposed. It didn't work. The couple had a party to celebrate the home's new look. 2 women told newspaper columnist Harold Ware about the festivities the 60 years after the event. They had remained silent all those decades and refused to give Ware even the names of the family involved. All the reverenders had even pledged to secrecy. At precisely 11 o'clock, when all was going merrily, Ware wrote one of the women's accounts. The guests suddenly became conscious of something strange going on at the end of the drawing room, where the bedroom had been. It was like a whirlwind of nothingness, sensed rather than seen. The room grew cold, and tongues were not so uncomfortably silent. A 4-poster rosewood bed emerged from the whirling wind. A woman was lying on the bed, clearly at the point of departure from this life. The woman told Ware what truly frightened the resembled guest was that the woman was staring in wide-eyed horror at the instant figure of a man sitting in a Victorian chair near the bed. The extraordinary scene remained visibly for some time and then faded away. Everyone except the owners left, but not before they swore never to reveal what they had seen. Within a very short time, the couple who had taken so much time and energy to remodel the ghosts away had sold the house and put all the furniture up for auction. Ware said one of the women who had told him the story saved the strangest part for last. She told him she had later attended the auction of the owner's furniture. Ware wrote, the new drawing room rug where the Phantom 4 poster had rested was marked by 4 well-worn indentations, exactly as though some heavy piece of furniture had rested there for a matter of months. Nothing was sitting in that position on the rug after the remodeling. The house was eventually torn down, replaced by an anonymous and simply unhaunted apartment building. So that is it for this video. Those were very spooky. I got chills reading them. I'm now scared. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know which one was your favorite. And yeah, that'll be it for this video. Give it a big thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those are always down there. Subscribe to being a Lizzinator. We'd be happy to have you. And always remember that a little magic always goes a long way. And I'll speak to you guys in the last episode, episode 10 of Lizzoween. Bye, guys!